We're the Southwark Enhanced Intervention Service.
Hi, I'm Jenny.
I'm Sophie.
I'm Anissa.
I'm Julia.
I'm Rohan.
And we'd like to welcome you to the Family Carers video.
In this video, we'll be talking about learning disabilities, autism, and challenging behaviour. To get the most out of the video, make sure that you have your handbook and a pen with you, as there are times we will ask you to take some time to reflect on your loved one and participate in some activities. You may be reluctant to do these activities, but we would strongly suggest taking the time to take part if you can, much like you would in our usual face-to-face family carer workshops. Please feel free to pause and rewind this video as much as you like. We hope you enjoy it and find it useful. Thank you for watching, and remember to come to our drop-in session later this week. We suggest that you pause the video now to get a pen and your workbook. Whenever you are ready, you can start the video again.
A learning disability affects the way a person understands information and how they communicate. They may also have difficulty with everyday activities, for example, household tasks, socialising, or managing money. It means that they can have difficulty in their speech and language development, resulting in slow or no speech, and they may need support to communicate. They could also have limited social skills and may find it hard to interact with other people. An individual with a learning disability may also have difficulty in understanding new or complex information. So information may have to be given to them in small, bite-sized parts, in an easy-read format, or through pictures. They may also take longer to learn. An individual with a learning disability may have a limited ability to abstract and generalise, so they may find it hard to understand something that they cannot see, touch, or feel, and those unwritten social rules that we abide by. A learning disability is lifelong. It will never go away and it can never be cured, but it may manifest itself differently as someone develops and as one experiences more of the world. Let us take a moment now to think about how your loved one's presentation has changed over the years. It may be helpful to note down some of your reflections. If you turn to page 4 of your handbook, there is some space for you to note down your thoughts.
Remember to pause the video now so you have more time. A learning disability occurs when a person's brain development is affected, either before they're born, during their birth, or in early childhood. Sometimes there's no known cause for a learning disability. To be diagnosed with a learning disability, someone must have a low intellectual ability and have significant impairment of social or adaptive functioning. These difficulties must have started in childhood. A learning disability can be mild, moderate, severe, or profound. As the level of disability increases, so does the person's needs. For example, someone with a mild learning disability may be able to communicate verbally and look after themselves independently, but may need a bit longer than usual to learn new skills. As the severity of the learning disability increases, others may not be able to communicate at all and may need help with everyday tasks, such as leaving the house, cooking, washing, and dressing.
So, what do we know about the prevalence rates of individuals with learning disabilities in the UK? Data from the 2019 ONS show that there are around 1.5 million people in the UK living with a learning disability. Approximately 1.2 million of these are in England. Approximately 2.16% of adults in the UK are said to have a learning disability, and 2.5% of children in the UK are said to have a learning disability. While there is no definitive record of the number of people with learning disabilities locally, information from Southwark Council estimates that approximately 3/4 of the learning disabled population in the borough are known to social services. These are typically people with a moderate or severe learning disability. By 2021, there will be around 6,500 adults in Southwark with a learning disability, with the largest cohort of adults being aged between 25 and 34 years old. So remember, you're not alone in this. Let us hear what having a learning disability means to someone who has been diagnosed.
For me, a learning disability means that people will find it hard to be able to learn things first time, and they need time. They need time to understand things.
They might need care and support as well by their parents, by their mum and dad or brother and sister, or their family carers.
Learning disability is a lifelong condition, but I've got a learning disability, but it does not mean that we cannot work just as well as anybody else. Sometimes we can do the job even better.
I actually didn't know what it was till 93. It's just sometimes I'm lucky, sometimes people are impatient.
People with a learning disability, they really are like awesome people that like to mix. People with a learning disability can do it.
People with learning disabilities often have more than one diagnosis and have a set of conditions that are unique to them. In this video, we are going to be talking about autism and challenging behaviour. We'll begin with challenging behaviour. Behaviour that challenges is relatively common among people with learning disabilities. The terms challenging behaviour or behaviour that challenges are not intended to be a diagnosis. They have been deliberately designed to remind professionals that the behaviour is a challenge to services, families and/or carers. Behaviour that challenges has been found to correlate with severity of learning disability, with a general trend toward an increase of such behaviour in people with more severe learning disabilities. But remember, behaviours that challenge do occur in people with a mild learning disability too. Rates for behaviours that challenge in people with learning disabilities are also sensitive to age. The highest rates are observed during late adolescence. Think of all those transitions, falling to lower levels in later adulthood. Factors that contribute to the likelihood of behaviour that challenge for any one person are likely to be multiple and to involve physical, emotional, social and environmental factors. Later in this video we will talk more about why challenging behaviours may occur, but for now, let's talk about autism.
Autism, autism spectrum disorders, or autism spectrum conditions are neurological conditions that affect a way a person experiences and interacts with the world. They are characterised by impaired social interaction, communication and imagination, repetitive behaviour, a restricted range of interests, and delayed or disordered language. As an adult, there are several ways that your loved one's autistic characteristics can present. These can include thinking in black and white terms, echolalia, where they repeat words or sentences, showing no interest in conversation and having difficulty in seeing another person's perspective, displaying unusual hand and or finger mannerisms and sensory-seeking behaviours, having sustained and unusual interests, and having difficulties expressing their needs and attending to daily living situations. Take a moment to think about how your loved one's autism presents. If you turn to page 8 of your handbook, there is some space for you to note down your thoughts.
Remember to pause the video now so you have more time.
So, for an individual with a learning disability and autism, the world can be a very difficult place, and often we forget about how everyday activities can affect an individual's sensory input. We are going to try and simulate how an everyday task may be experienced through an autistic person's sensory world. You may feel the urge to turn down the volume, but please try not to. Someone with autism cannot turn down the volume of their world. Please also note that within the next clip, there are bright, flashing lights.
Sensory overload can be just one factor that makes the world a confusing and difficult place for your loved one. Just imagine how you'd feel having your senses amplified all the time. Sensory difficulties can trigger behaviours that challenge, as they can make the individual feel anxious, stressed, overwhelmed, or even overexcited. However, there are lots of other things that can trigger behaviours that challenge too. Pace. Things happening without the person having time to understand or comprehend. Strangers. People who do not know or understand their needs, trying to interact with them, saying trigger words, doing things that they do not like, or telling them that they are naughty or weird. Chaos or unpredictability. Not understanding what is going on around them and experiencing the world as chaotic. Change. Changes in the world around them, changes to routine, things happening out of the ordinary or doing something new. Being ignored, or most typically feeling like they're being ignored because they are unable to communicate what they want or need, or being unable to say what they like or dislike. Capacity, being unable to manage the demands that are being placed on them. This can be even something small, such as asking someone what they want to do, or asking someone to take their plate to the kitchen. Waiting for anything, an appointment, medication, food, an activity, anything. And any other anxiety-provoking situation where the person feels anxious because they don't understand or cannot predict the world around them, and struggle to communicate this or get their needs met. Now take a moment to think about what triggers the behaviours that challenge for your loved one. If you turn to page 21 of your handbook, there is some space for you to note down your thoughts. Remember to pause the video now so you have more time.
In response to sensory overload and all these triggers, some people may also engage in self-stimulating behaviour. These are also known as stims. Let us hear directly from someone who stims to look at what this means. While this video is running, think about any stimming behaviour your loved one may show. The lady in this video has a diagnosis of autism and is also a carer for her son, who has a diagnosis of a learning disability and autism.
Stimming is a great way to combat sensory processing. Humming, singing, la 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 la, doodling. Output blocks input. It's why many autistic people will look away from you when they're talking. They won't make eye contact. If I look at you, I won't listen to what you're saying. If I look away from you, I can pay attention. The same if I'm drawing and creating output so I can receive the input. People perceive that we're just doodling and not paying attention. We're stimming. So stims are anything which is repetitive, stimulatory, and soothing and comforting to the person. I'm doing it right now. Squeezing is one of my stims. Squishing people's ears. Squish, 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 squish. Flapping, rocking, pacing up and down, jumping up and down, jumping about, jumping about, jumping about, jumping about, saying things over and over again, echolalia, wordplay. All of these are stims. Stimming is attached to our emotional. It's not just sensory, it's emotional as well. I'm feeling anxious when anxiety is running through my body, when sadness or anger or happiness is running through my body. What better way to get rid of it or displace it or express it through moving? So I'm going to talk about displacement. Autistics displace their stims so naturally, but people have been introducing different ways for us to do it. So fidget spinners is a... Oops, sorry, I'm dyspraxic. Visual stims are great because visual stims distract, I find. This is mine, I love crystals. Visual stim. Aromatherapy can be a stim. Smelling can be a stim. Some autistics will smell and smell and smell and smell. Well, aromatherapy, ooh, is a great stim. I've learned to stim dance. It's essentially where I just sit down, and I've started to do it standing on the spot as well. And I've incorporated all my stingy, flappy movements. And I do it along to music. When autistic people aren't permitted to use these stims to cope, it can lead to very stressful behaviours. I try to hold it together. I sometimes go, and end up hitting myself in the head. It's my dermatillomania. It's the repetitive action of pulling off skin. And I've done it since I was 8 years old and I'm now 32. Trichotillomania is where you excessively and repeatedly pull out hair, and I do it on my legs. I will get tweezers and I will sit there for an hour and I will repeatedly pluck and pluck and pluck and pluck and pluck. A lot of things with my hands, a lot of touching repeated with my face, grabbing and touching with my hair, twirling my hair. But instead of just saying, don't stim, it's really helpful for us to have a conversation about it as autistic people and as neurodiverse people, and to say, how do you stim? What helps you? How do you avoid the harmful stims? I stim dance. What about you? How do you stim?
With all the potential triggers, it is easy to see how this could lead to high levels of anxiety, which can lead to episodes of challenging behaviour. Some may also experience such episodes when their stimming has not provided the relief that they needed.
So let's talk more about anxiety and these episodes of challenging behaviour. Anyone with a learning disability and/or autism may have episodes of challenging behaviour. Usually these episodes are preceded by signs of distress or anxiety, which we call early warning signs. These might have been referred to as rumblings as a child. These are outward signs of distress that can sometimes be quite obvious or sometimes very subtle. Early warning signs might involve a verbal plea, for example, go now, or the person may display visual signs of distress, such as putting their hands over their ears. These episodes may involve stimming or sensory behaviours, such as rocking, pacing, or finger flicking, which can be signs of anxiety. Episodes of challenging behaviour are often preceded by these early warning signs, which indicate that the person is becoming distressed or anxious. If this anxiety is not reduced, the early warning signs can escalate into an episode of challenging behaviour. We often talk about these forms of challenging behaviour in the terms of an anxiety curve. The anxiety curve illustrates anxiety in terms of behaviour. Let's look at what that looks like.
Here we have a curve representing anxiety. It is important to note that your positive behaviour support plan should be used from the beginning to the end of an episode and details what to do at each stage. Stage 1 is a trigger. At stage 1, it may be helpful to use a 5-point check-in with your loved one if you are able to do so. This is on page 24 of your handbook. As the behaviour escalates, at stage 2, you may start to see the early warning signs. Here is when you should make sure you implement strategies to help reduce the anxiety, such as giving your loved one space, removing or reducing demands or sensory stimuli, and redirecting them to preferred low-demand activity. At stage 3, now is the time for you to consider removing them from the environment altogether, if possible. At stage 4, you do not want to be offering your loved one choices. You should be trying to give them calm, direct, simple instructions they will be able to understand. Keep verbal communication to a minimum and consider using visuals or objects to communicate. As the behaviour peaks at stage 5, here is when we really see the challenging behaviour. It can be displayed in many forms, such as hitting, biting, kicking, damage to property, and or self-injury. Now is the time to ensure your own safety too. Call for support and leave your loved one alone or at a safe distance to let them calm down by themselves. Once the peak is over and your loved one has started to de-escalate, continue to encourage your loved one to relax. It is still not the time for them to start making decisions again. Rather, they will need your support to return to their baseline. Continue to encourage relaxation activities, calming and soothing activities as they continue to follow the downward curve. This is still not the time to talk about their challenging behaviour. And finally, when they are nearly back to their baseline, use calm redirection to a preferred activity. It is important to remember that even though your loved one has returned to their baseline presentation, they are still vulnerable and they still need to feel safe. They will now be in the recovery stage. Here, you need to continue to offer support, comfort, and redirection. They will need time to reacclimatise, and lecturing or punishment at this stage will not be helpful. Your loved one's threshold in the recovery stage is still very low. They may be more easily triggered, and if they are triggered here, the behaviour is likely to occur at a faster rate. Experiencing your loved one's anxiety and increase in behaviour will inevitably affect you as a carer too. You will also experience your own curve during the meltdown. As you start to identify the early warning signs in your loved one, you will have to be able to control your own emotions and respond to the situation. Here, you may experience the fight, flight, or freeze response due to your own anxiety increasing. As they return to the baseline and is in the recovery stage, you will then experience several emotions, often at a high intensity. You may also be hurt and could be experiencing burnout. All these factors will affect your own well-being, so it is important to look after yourself. We have made a second video with a mindfulness activity that can support your well-being. There are also some useful tips in the Wellbeing Handbook that we posted out to you a few months ago. Let us see how someone with autism describes an episode of challenging behaviour for them. Note that in the next clip, they use the term meltdown rather than episode of challenging behaviour.
Autistic meltdowns are not a tantrum. They are a neurological overload. It gets the body physically prepared to fight and flight by releasing lots of nasty stress hormones. Our brain activates cortisol, adrenaline, gets your heart pumping, the blood delivered to your muscles, so you can fight or run away, flee the situation. The difficulty is that autistic people will become overloaded from a lot of things because we are sensory sensitive, cognitively overloaded. The adrenaline, your heart's racing so much and you're sweating so much, you can barely even think. I don't even know what I'm saying. I feel like I need to fight the situation to survive. Why does this happen? Triggers, baby, triggers. Iceberg theory. We all have a conscious, and underneath that, in the unconscious and the subconscious, are memories and other past traumas which we all keep bearing. We may be triggered because a routine has broken. We feel anxious outside of that, so we control a lot of the things in the environment to make it predictable. Some autistic people, when they melt down, will shut down, completely freeze, and go inwards on themselves. And I know what that feels like. You go completely numb. All the awful bad feelings come over me, and I actually become mute. I don't often speak for an hour or so when I'm in those states. Speaking about it makes me stim. Because it's a physical response, your autistic person cannot help this. It is not deliberate. It is our jobs as adults to react appropriately to autistic distress and trauma. See which one you think is more helpful. I'm having a meltdown and I'm hitting myself and I'm throwing things everywhere and I'm telling you that I hate you, and you're saying, yeah, well, I hate you too, and I don't think you're great either, and your behaviour is disgusting, and I'm never going to give you that present, and I'm cancelling your birthday party. The autistic person will fight and fight and fight because they feel it is the end of the world and they have nothing to lose. So try this. I know you are sad. I know you are angry. I am sorry you are in pain. How can I help? Is there anything I can do? Would you like me to go away? Would you like me to be quiet? Do you need a minute? Do you need a glass of water? Do you need a pen and a paper to show me? Can you show me through a movie or in a book? Can you draw how you feel? What are you afraid of? Validate your autistic. Validate how terrified they are in that moment. Even though it doesn't make sense to you, they may fight it. They may say to you, well, of course I'm not okay. Speak autistic. Speak in blunt, factual, logical terms. Say, I know you're not okay. I know you are sad. If you are finding that you are becoming overloaded from the meltdown, take a step back. That's not planned ignoring. That's you going away to get a drink, to look after yourself, regulate yourself, so you can be better equipped to help that person in distress. But you cannot do it if your fight-flight has been activated and you're fighting them as well. If you're in a situation with your meltdowns and you're asking, why is this not getting better? Ask yourself, are you fighting the meltdown as well? And if so, we have a few people in fight-flight here, and all of it needs to be deactivated.
We have spent most of our time today focusing on challenging behaviour, which can be a difficult topic to think about. And yes, while there are difficulties, and there can be negative behaviours associated with learning disabilities, there are many good sides too. These positives and strengths are truly valued by others. We would like to finish the video today by thinking about some of the strengths that might come along with learning disabilities and autism. Some of these include attention to detail, deep focus, observation skills, being able to absorb and retain facts, having visual skills, expertise, having a methodical approach, having novel approaches, being creative, tenacity and resilience, being accepting of differences, and integrity. And so for our last task and reflection, let's take a few moments for you to reflect on the positive attributes that your loved one has.
Remember to pause the video now so you have more time.
Thank you for watching this video.
If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. And remember to come to our drop-in session. The date and time is listed on page 37 of your handbook. We're looking forward to seeing you then.